What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Her Lounge podcast. I am excited about today's guest, y'all. So real quick, before I introduce her, I do want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Asanet Ponce, who was the person who told me about Julia. I hadn't discovered her yet on YouTube, but she was the one that said to me, "Hey, I think there's someone that I follow that you would really like a lot." And I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Yes." She's like, she's doing her she's documenting her journey to go into Olympia. And I was like, word. I was like, wow. I was like, oh, I've got to see this. And then I checked you and I was like, holy shit, she is the real deal for sure. And so then I started following you. And then she's like, you should reach out to her. It's like, usually people with that large of a following don't really want to come on podcast. I was like, because that means they don't really want to mess with you. And she's like, what? It doesn't hurt. And I was like, true. So then I was like, I'm just going to do it. If she says no, that's fine. It's okay. So thank you for being on, Julia. I know you're super busy, and Julia Rene, excuse me, for coming on. And I'll let you introduce yourself because you do such a good job on your YouTube channel. If you're new to this channel, my name is Julia Rene, and I am just kidding.
I know, right? Hi, guys. Thank you so much for that introduction and for someone recommending me. It's so awesome. That's one thing that I do that I think a lot of quote unquote influencers, I hate the word influencer, because I just want to influence. That's it. That I answer everybody, females also, mainly all the ladies out there. But thank you so much for having me. I am actually just turned 25. I'm an IFBB wellness pro. So if anyone listening doesn't know what that is, basically I'm a pro bodybuilder. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. And I focus a lot on coaching women and helping people through their binge eating. Actually, that's one thing that I'm really drawn to help people with, because as a pro bodybuilder, I think people think I got my SHIT together with my diet and my cardio and all this, but I struggle just as much as the other person does. So,
and you're very honest too. That's actually what I really liked about your videos. You like never just show the pretty. It's almost like, no, like I legit struggle through me dropping this weight, as I get to where I need to be. But it's not just a couple of years, because I saw your video that said you've actually been doing this since you actually started at 15 with wrestling. And that's kind of how you got your introduction with bodybuilding, correct?
Yeah, so at about 15 through 18, I was a wrestler in high school. So I was the only girl on an all boys wrestling team. Girls would come and go, but they never really stayed. So I was just the only one to do it. My brother actually kind of convinced me to do it after he was basically practicing on me so much because he didn't have a brother. I always like to say I was my brother's younger brother.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where it started. That's where I got into weightlifting and wrestling and cardio. And that's where I learned pretty bad dieting habits, to cut weight. Now, obviously, I got it together, but I've been dieting pretty hard since I was 15 and didn't really realize it.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you actually decide, like, at what age was it that you really decided, well, I think I'm going to do this bodybuilding thing. Like, this is really cool. I really want to try this.
So after high school, I graduated in about 2015. This really shows how young I am. And I actually went to go do hair. That's what my passion was, to be a cosmetologist. So I was a makeup artist and a hairstylist for a couple of years. And then one day I just looked at myself and was like, I can't do this the rest of my life. Like the thought of doing this the rest of my life was debilitating.
Yeah.
And so I was really getting into fitness again at that point and started finding my love for it again, because I completely fell off. I wasn't working out. I was eating whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, basically just taking advantage of my age and how calories and exercise don't really affect you that much when you're younger. And I didn't recognize myself in the mirror, because I know I'm an athlete at heart, and I just fell into something that wasn't really me. And then I want to say, let's see, maybe like 2015, I think about maybe 2018 or 2019 is when I started getting serious about bodybuilding.
Wow. Oh, is that when I just, mine was on a bucket. I'm way older than you. It was on my bucket list to do before I was turned 35. And then I was like, gonna be 35. And I was like, oh my God, this really just crept up on me.
Right.
So I just hit it hard. And it was, I too was always like, I was not a wrestler, but I was in dance and soccer. So working out, being an athlete was always really my thing. When I went to college, I gained a lot of weight because I wasn't working out and it just wasn't available. It's a really weird sport, I think, bodybuilding. I don't know if you'd agree. I don't really know why we do this to ourselves. Like I've always wondered that. Like if you really think about it, you create and sculpt this amazing body, right? Only to go on the stage to get judged, right? So that you can get some sort of title. Is that not crazy? Like I think there's something.
Oh yeah, you have to be pretty crazy to be a bodybuilder. And that's the thing is what I admire the most about bodybuilders is we do the one thing that people fear the most. And that is willingly put ourselves on stage, half naked, might I add, to be judged.
Yeah.
Humans fear being judged more than anything. That's what causes them to not go after something they want, not break up with somebody, not try a new career because you're scared of what everyone else is going to think of you. So I am biased as well, but I also did wrestling and I thought wrestling was the hardest sport I ever did. But I think bodybuilding is the hardest sport out there because at the end of the day, it's you versus you. Nobody's there to do the cardio for you. No one's gonna there. You have a coach that might tell you to follow your diet, but at the end of the day, it's up to you. You can't rely on anybody else to put yourself on that stage and show up the best that you can.
Yeah, that's true. One of the things that I do, I love watching your videos is how you tell everyone like how to like get your food and what you eat, and you show them what you eat and how you're hungry and your alternatives and stuff like that. How long did it take you before you kind of figured it out? Like, okay, so I'm hungry, so I'm going to have to eat here, here, and here so that I'm not starving by the time I'm going to bed. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you're prepping for such a big competition like Olympia. You're how many days out? 60 what now?
I think around 67 or so. So I think I'm about 9 weeks out at this point. So I still have to qualify for the Olympia. I haven't qualified, but this is kind of the thing that I do is my last series was my Road to Pro series. So I started the series chasing my pro card and I got my pro card. So this time now I'm chasing the qualification. So it puts this added pressure on me to like really go after the thing that I want to do, because not only am I documenting it, but it's a pretty lofty goal and I'm attached to the goal, but I'm not so attached to it that if it doesn't happen, that my world is going to crumble. Does that make sense?
I had a question for you about documenting now that you say that. Besides you obviously documenting this for women who are interested in bodybuilding, women who struggle with eating, just a variety of things, because you offer a variety of stuff on your YouTube channel. Although it is your journey, you do offer other stories and other videos and tips and so forth. Is documenting your way of being able to look back later on, or is this to hold you accountable, like so that you're like, okay, I am committed? Because people like myself who waits to see when you post the next video to see where you are along your journey, right? Is that why you do it, or what's the reason that you decided you wanted to document you're leading up to your Olympia qualification?
For me, I just love sharing what prep is really like with people. I love that YouTube is literally a documentation of my life, because I get to look back at all of these moments of being young and like being able to do bodybuilding, because I know that there's a time where I'm not going to be able to do it anymore and I'm going to move on to something different. But right now, while I feel like I'm in the prime, getting to look back on it, even looking back on my last series, Road to Pro, like I still cry thinking about where I was and my emotional state at those moments when I'm filming that video and thinking, wow, like I actually did it. And most importantly, I love documenting it because I get to see I get to show people what being on prep is really like.
Mhm.
And I have a lot of competitors that follow me and they prep with me. They watch my videos while they do their
Cool.
prep, and it
Mhm.
makes them feel less alone, because bodybuilding can be so lonely when there's nobody around you doing what you do. And I feel like I love being that person that can get people through cardio, because I would want someone to do that for me.
It's funny you say that about lonely. That's kind of how I felt every Sunday. We did like a dinner, my sister, my mom and they never understood, like when during, I know myself, so I didn't want to be tempted. And
Yeah.
so they never understood why I just couldn't join them, even though I wasn't going to eat their food. I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's not really so much that I just can't sit there. It's just really hard to sit there and smell
Yes.
whatever it is that you guys are eating. And meanwhile, my food is not cooked with as much grease as your food is. And
Right.
the quantity is way smaller than what you're getting to eat. I was like, so why would I put myself? And so my thing, even with my husband at that time, he was my boyfriend, even with him, our dates would just be coffee shops, because it was the only thing that I could honestly do without feeling like tempted, or I could bring my food to a coffee shop, you know what I'm saying? And no one's going to tell you anything. And, it's a very lonely road if you don't, no one gets it, especially because they don't understand why you're doing this. When I did my first competition, I remember my mom and her friend went. And my mom was just kind of going, my mom didn't really understand it. She's like, I don't know why you want to do this again. And so it was like, is this healthy? I'm like, yes and no. I'm like, there's some healthy parts in it, and then there's some unhealthy parts. You know what I'm saying? I was like, but we'll get there late, so it'd be kind of like a thing. And then after my competition, I remember she's like, oh, I think I want to do this. I'm like,
yes.
Okay,
Mom.
Mom.
And I can relate to you a lot on that, because I don't think my family quite understood why I needed to do this until they experienced all of these benefits that came with doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing that I tell people, don't just prep for the physical aspects of. I want you to prep because of the growth that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
If I never won or never competed again, I would still prep, just because prep brings out my deepest shadows that I need to work on. Because when you're put in difficult situations, that's when you are forced to grow. And I have learned more about myself prepping than any other parts of my life, because that's where I find out, oh, Julia, you struggle with this, you struggle with this, you struggle with this. How can we work on that? And each prep gives me an opportunity to grow in those areas that I might not have even found if I wasn't put in that situation. So down to the root of it, that's why I like to do it.
I think you just gave me my aha moment, Rob. Rob gives me I just had a baby tomorrow, 7 months ago. And one of the things that I was getting myself in shape, and then I got pregnant again. And then, so this time around, I am going hardcore, and I'm just going to go on one of my menus that I would be on, should I be leading up to a competition, right? Like the off season leading up to it. So anyway, I told Rob, my producer, that I was going to do that. She goes, why would you go so hard? Like, you just went from I was like, no, this is the way I function. This is what I do. But that's what it is, Rob. It's like, it helps me find, she just helped me figure this out.
Relax.
Thanks, Julia Rene.
Julia Rene.
You, girl.
Julia Rene, answer me this. As somebody who's competed for as long as you have, and even Marisol has, wouldn't you say that if you just had a child and maybe you're trying to come back, throwing the kitchen sink at yourself isn't the right approach from the jump?
I would say for normal people, no. But for people who are competitors and have something quite literally different in their brain, that's just how they have to attack things. Because they attack things.
How many years removed? How many years removed would you have to say you still consider yourself a competitor?
I don't think you ever lose that.
I know you don't think you
ever lose it.
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Okay, mentally you don't ever lose it, but physiologically, your body's not prepared to just jump into a prep after 3 years of not doing one and having a baby.
So that's my goal right now. So I want to do another. I just turned 40 this past in October. So my goal is to do one in my 40s now, right? Because I just kind of want to prove a point that
you can, you for sure can.
I hate when people say like, oh, you've had 2 kids. Like don't say that. I hate when people say like, it's going to be way too hard for you. It's like that's the part that I feel it's like, and it's exactly what she just said. It's almost like once a bodybuilder, it's almost like it's always somewhere down there, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, okay, I'm ready to pull it out. It's going to come out and here it is. You know what I'm saying?
Do I need to pull out the little violin?
There
the
you
tiny
go.
violin for
She
you?
figured it out. That's all I got to say, Rob. So this time around, Julia, though, for the first time when you went pro, what did you do different to train then than you are doing now? Because requirements are different, right? Like to be able to qualify, are you having to look a different way for those that don't really know about bodybuilding, maybe as far as the body shape, maybe help them explain how you have to prepare and what you have to grow and what you have to minimize, etc.
That makes a lot of sense. So I would say this is amateur versus being a pro. So the difference, I think, between an amateur who's trying to get to that level is that the competition is relatively, it's not as competitive. And once you it was still really hard to go pro. I tried twice. And I think what I learned the most from that prep is that the more you get close to a professional level, you need to just be a lot leaner. So this time around, the main difference is I started at a way healthier point as far as weight and body fat goes, so that I wouldn't have to cut so drastically and mess with my hormones like I did my last show. Even though I did go pro my last show, it was a really hard prep because at a certain point, I was doing 2 hours of cardio, very little food, because my body, it's hard for my body to lose weight. And I think there's a lot of competitors out there that don't really share how difficult it can be for certain body types to lose weight. So my body gave up on me at a certain point to where we had to push it even further to get it to just look as lean as the other people on stage. And even so, when I won my pro card, I don't think I was as lean as I could have been, but I showed up even better the second time. And the judges saw that. I showed up better with my confidence, with my posing. My body was looking a lot better. And they saw me and they said, you know what? She deserves it. And this time around, I've just, like I said, I learned so much in prep, what to do, what not to do, and areas that I need to work on. And I knew that I needed to work on having a better off season or improvement season. So when I show up for this really important time in my life, I don't put my body in so much strain to where it gives up on me, because it's about longevity. It's not about short-term goal gain,
sure.
Especially in bodybuilding. If you want to do this for long-term, because it's not the most healthy thing, it's not sustainable, you have to be very smart with it.
As far as like growth is concerned, how much growth do you think you've had? Obviously, you've just said, as far as like, you knew that this time around you had to go in different for your off season and so forth. But as far as growth, even with your partner, because your partner helps you out though, right? So that makes it a little bit easier when you have someone who can relate to what you're not that he's prepping, but he knows and understands the gym world, the competitive world and so forth. So as far as your journey with growth, with having meltdowns, with having like, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh my God, you know, it's like, I'm not dropping it. How were you able to get through that without putting pressure on yourself? Because even stress will cause you not to be able to drop, you know?
Exactly.
So how did you like maneuver through those things?
I would say, I'm not going to lie, that this last time I didn't do a very good job at it. And I was telling people that during the series, that there was points where at that point where my body just stopped responding and it wasn't moving, and we needed to get my weight down in order to qualify and to be pro. So I put a lot of pressure on myself, not only because I felt that I had to go pro, or the series was going to be a bust, which is not true at all. But I was very open with people and telling them, like, I'm getting really upset with myself about that my body is just not responding, and this isn't healthy for me. I know what I'm doing and I need to get out of it. So even though I end up getting out of these bad negative thought patterns, I still tell people, I'm like, yo, I'm in this pattern and it might take me a little bit to get out of it, but I promise you that I will. And I think that was the biggest thing that happened towards the end of that. And our strain, I had a strain on our relationship as far as me and my fiance, who's my coach too. And that was one of the biggest things that I learned for this prep, that I'm not going to do that to him, because he's more important. You know, like your relationships are so important. If you screw them over during prep, like, yeah, you're going to be at the top of your competing career, but you're not going to have anybody alongside you.
Yeah, you'd be alone there.
Right.
And that's not fun. One thing that I noticed that you do in your videos is that you write in your, I guess, what is that? Your journal of like affirmations and so forth. Did you just start that, or did you always do that? Or did you discover that doing that this time around kind of got you out of that funk that you're talking about?
So I've been journaling since as young as I can remember. I think the earliest I can remember would be like 5th grade. So I have journals upon journals upon journals from about 5th grade, but
that's really
I
cool.
started, I think, yeah, I still have them.
That's really cool.
They're really funny to look at.
That's really cool.
When I journaled then, it was more so like, you know, what was going on in my like fifth grade life, 8th grade life. So they're funny, but I don't think I truly started moving into like manifesting things and writing my goals down and really believing them until I'd say I was a hairstylist. So maybe like 2016, 2017-ish. And that's when I really started going after things I wanted. And I saw a direct correlation between writing things down and getting what I wanted. And the 3-step process that I go through to do that is, number one, write it down in detail, like the thing that you want. And this is what I've been doing for every single morning for this Road to Olympia series. I will qualify for the 2022 Olympia every single day. I've wrote it down a zillion times, and I did the same thing last prep. I will be an IFBB pro, and this year, this date, and it works. You know, obviously it's not going to fall into your lap. So there's like a 3-step process that goes with it. 1, writing down exactly what you want in detail, no matter how crazy it might sound. 2, visualize you achieving that goal and express gratitude as if it's already yours. So, and 3, obviously you have to work towards it.
For sure.
And one thing I'll tell you that was super wild from my last pro series, going pro, I wrote down that goal every single morning, and I visualized it with gratitude as if I already had it. So every morning on the Stairmaster, I saw myself walking on the stage, them saying, and our new IFBB pro, Julia Rene, and I heard the voice and everything. It was very clear to me. So when I finally got it, what's even more wild is the exact announcer that I heard in my visualization was the announcer that actually gave me my pro card.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Which is the one that opens up on your videos?
Yes, that's it.
Oh, wow.
That moment, that's why I keep it in my video so long and at the beginning of it, because that was a huge moment for me, because I visualized that every single day, even when I really didn't want to be there.
Have you ever told that story on any of your YouTube channels? You should.
I don't know if I have. I don't even, I think I've told Zach, but you're right. I need to tell people that.
Yeah, you do. Cause that's really cool. I think that most people would probably appreciate the announcement of that a lot more when your video starts. You know, it's like, oh shit, like this was something that she manifested. This is something that she worked towards and really wanted. And now it's like, it's there. It's part of the beginning of her videos that we get to watch. So I think that's a really cool thing. You should probably tell your view. Oh, I got to hear it. So, you know,
you're the first one.
Yeah, the first one. Like I said, the one thing I love that you do on your videos is that you give a lot of tips. So you coach women right now only. Okay. What are some of the things that you find that most women are dealing with or that deal with when they come to you for coaching, for assistance? And they're not bodybuilders, correct?
No, I don't coach any bodybuilders.
Okay. Yeah. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
That's
a lot of people.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you face with women that come to you for help? Like, what do you see most? And then what do you see most accomplished? I guess I'd like to see like where they start,
Yeah.
where they finish.
Good question. I would say when people start with me, the most common thing that happens is they struggle with the scale a lot. They rely on it so much to where it tells them their worth. And I think when they leave me, they know that it's not the most important thing. And there's so many other factors that go with it, like your measurements, your body fat, your muscle mass, because I even have clients that they'll say, Julia, I haven't lost any weight. And I say, girl, go do a body scan. They do a body scan, they've lost body fat and they've gained muscle. That's why their weight hasn't gone and moved. But it's so ingrained in us to just have the scale tell how much we're worth and how hard we're working, when there's so many other factors that you need to be looking at. And I struggle with the scale all the time. I was telling my fiance this morning, because he's having me weigh in twice this week, and I only weigh in once a week because for my own, mental health.
Yeah,
I was like, babe, please tell me next week I won't have to weigh in twice, because I don't like what it does to me, because I know my body's changing. And he's like, okay, next week we won't be doing that. So I'd say that the scale is one of the number one things that women struggle with. Number two, I think maybe confidence level in the gym and being courageous enough to lift heavy. A lot of women are going into the gym, lifting the same weights that they know they can do, that they're confident in, because like we said at the beginning, they're fearful of what other people are going to think of them if they fail. There's been so many times where I go to the gym, I put a weight on and I can't lift it and I have to unrack it. And yeah, at the beginning of my career, that was so embarrassing. I was like, oh my God, everyone's staring at me. But now I'm like, yeah, whatever. I tried it. I couldn't do it. We all fail. It's part of being a human. But I totally relate to that. I know that the gym is scary, and I know that it can be hard to lift heavy, but if you want to build the muscle and the curves that you're wanting, you need to get uncomfortable. You need to lift those weights that you're not sure that you can do. And staying in your comfort zone only keeps you right where you are. You won't make any steps forward and you won't make any steps backwards, but you stay put. So I'd say number one is the scale. Number two is the confidence and courage to be lifting heavy.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think most women, we just did a challenge in my Discord. And so I have a Patreon and women sign up, and we just did what was that, Rob? How many weeks was that? 8 weeks?
8 weeks. Yeah.
8 weeks challenge. And funny thing is, everyone in our chat, the one thing they said was, I hate having to get on the scale every Monday. You know what I'm saying? To look at this. I never liked weighing myself. I'm the same way. It does something to me also. I'm more of I'll rather measure myself, because I just feel like I know that's what's up there versus I'm also like, I also wear heavy. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I feel like whenever I was bodybuilding, I was just always felt heavy for some reason, even though I was itty bitty, but like I just always felt like the scale didn't match what my measurements were. If that kind of makes sense. I
think too, when you're a bodybuilder, you literally are just like more tank-like your muscles are hard. You're just built harder, because what we do to our bodies in the gym makes our body feel like a rock, which is crazy. My fiance was just telling me this. He's like, he's been out of bodybuilding for a little bit now. He does more like yoga and like functional training.
Sure, yeah.
And he's like, my body just feels more flexible. I don't feel like I'm a rock lifting rocks. And me, I feel like I'm a rock lifting rocks.
Yeah. You also lift super duper heavy. It's like, wow. How long did it take you to be able to do that? That's probably sometimes what people don't understand, what you just talked about, women, where they see like, you, for example, like if they were watching you lift so heavy, it's almost like, oh, I'd never be able to do that. But what they don't know is like, you didn't just wake up one day and just said, oh, here I go, I'm going to lift this weight. So how long did it take you before you did get to where you are now? Because you've been doing this for a hot minute. Because I saw your, I think it was a reel of how much smaller you were.
Oh, I was tiny.
You were, yeah. And I was like, holy smokes, this girl has put on some damn muscle. Like, it's like, you did some work. How long did that take you to get there?
It took a couple of years. I mean, when I can't even remember when that first one was taken, because that one's not even on my phone anymore. It was such a long time ago. But
Well, you feel fit during that time. That's what's crazy.
yeah, I was when I first got back into fitness, I more so just wanted to lose weight. So I wanted to be skinny. And that was the point where I didn't want to be skinny anymore. I wanted muscle. And so that was that transformation where I was getting into fitness and I was just getting over that. I just want to be skinny until I want to be like strong. And the biggest part that got me from there was really tracking and progressive overload intentionally. I wasn't always perfect, but I'm intentional anytime that I go into the gym. I don't just go to go, I go with a purpose. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing next. And I know how much weight I lifted last week. And I know how much weight I want to lift this week.
Do you keep a journal of that, or you just mentally? You do? Okay.
Yeah. I love writing.
Yeah.
I even just like, I'm a little nerd, from the beginning, I was a nerd with my progress, and I just kept that habit up where I track everything that I do. And that's the way that you get stronger and that you challenge your muscles. If you know what you did last week, how do you know what you did last week or what you want to do this week if you don't know what you did last week?
Sure. Question for you, because you're so much younger than me. Are you a manual person, or do you on your phone?
Manual.
Yes. It's still alive. It's still
if
alive.
I get on my phone, I'll do other things. So I have to, find ways to not do that. I try to be on my phone the least as possible. I have to film at the gym. There's things that you have to do. It's part of my job.
Yeah.
But any way to get around it, I do.
Yeah. Are you 100%? So how you make a living is obviously as a competitor and your sponsors and so forth, but is your Buff Babe Academy, is that where you like, that's your job? That's your coaching was your job?
Yeah. Being basically the coach and content creator is my job.
That is a job.
Yeah.
I talk about it on my podcast all the time. Everyone, before I really got into creating more content, right? It was like, I used to watch other people and be like, gosh, that must be fun to just like create content all day, not knowing what it takes, because you have to be creative. You can't be repetitive too on your like YouTube channel. You can't be like same thing over and over. So, it's crazy. You said binge eating. Talk to us a little bit about that. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but talk to us a little bit about that. So, because I think that for some people, when they're sad, that's what happens. A breakup, binge eating can happen. So tell us a little bit more about really what binge eating is.
Yeah. And I think this is where a lot of people actually get confused with what binge eating is. And I'm actually right now going to look up the definition of binge eating disorder so that people can understand what it is. But a lot of people get it confused with emotional eating. Emotional eating is more so, exactly what it sounds like whenever you're sad and you're depressed. But binge eating is when you eat like an excessive amount of calories in one sitting. So we're talking like 1,000, 2,000, some like 3,000 to 4,000 in one sitting. And you either have some sort of like binge purge where you're, causing yourself to not have the food in your stomach anymore, or you're excessively exercising to cancel out what you did. And I put quote unquote cancel out. But some people either have the binge or the binge purge. And this happens in a pattern of like months. It's not just something that you do once, it's something that is a habit. Whereas emotional eating, you just eat it like some chocolate when you're feeling emotional. And I think that's where people think that they have a binge eating disorder versus they're having a rough time and they're having some emotional swings. But I noticed that I had a binge eating disorder in 2020, and it stems back to when I was in wrestling, because I have been in a binge purge cycle since I was 15. Because when I was a wrestler, I had to cut weight to get to a certain weight class to compete. And I did that the most unhealthy way, because that's all I knew. And that's what people were doing around me. So I would quite literally not eat. I wouldn't even drink water. I would put water in my mouth, slush it around, and then spit. Or I would spit in a water bottle, because if you fill a water bottle with spit, you lose a pound. Weird fun fact. So I would go sit in the sauna with a sauna suit. I'd run in the summer with sweats, all the terrible ways to lose weight, which is basically just water weight. And then I'd compete, and then I would eat a whole bunch of food to replenish not having food for such a long time. So over restricting, binge. I had done that from 15 to 18, and then finally felt some sort of freedom from 15 to maybe 18. And then I started getting into bodybuilding. And when I was put in a situation where I was in limited calories, it triggered that response from me for when I was 15. And I realized, oh my God, I have a problem. I didn't know that binge eating would be something that's a problem, because we hyper focus on not eating.
Sure.
We don't focus on overeating, which does just as much damage. And in 2020, when we went into lockdown and quarantine, I was 3 weeks out from my first show and it got canceled. So I was super lean. I was in a restrictive mode. And then all the things happening with quarantine and how it affected everybody in the world, I couldn't get out of the binge pattern. And I knew, wow, this is a problem. And I started looking it up and I was like, that sounds like me. So since 2020 till present, I've been working through it.
Wow, that's something new. I didn't know that I was thinking the whole other way, the emotional way of binge eating. I had no idea that it went to that level of it. Well, I learned something new today. A little bit of about your academy. Tell us about it. Like, when did you start this? How long ago have you had your Buff Babe Academy?
I would say, okay, we're in I think in about 2019. So I'm fairly new, to this whole world, but it's something that I knew that I wanted, and I went after it. Exactly what I'm doing right now is what I was trying to manifest so long ago. It doesn't really, it seems like long ago because of how much I've changed since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I knew that I wanted to be buff, but I also wanted to be a babe. I think that people think you can't be both. And I'm super feminine in the way that I do my makeup every day, hair, I dress really cute, like to the gym. I'm very girly, but also don't mess with me,
Yeah.
So that's where the term buff babe came, because you can be muscular, but you can also be feminine at the same time. There's no difference between the two. I just think society thinks there's something wrong with women having muscle.
Yep. I was just going to say, that was my next question. Do you get stared at, or I was not nearly as muscular as you were, but I remember, I never forget, when I won second place on my second competition. My husband posted my picture, and I never forget that it was men, of all things, men were the ones making the comments saying, "Are you dating a dude now?" It was like,
Yep.
Ew, that's so gross. All that muscle's disgusting. And I was like, wait, how is this? I honestly didn't expect that. Social media, they're evil, right? And they've always got 101 comments to make, right? But when he posted it and I saw those comments, I was like, do you know how hard it was for me to get there? For you to even say gross? I'm like, holy smokes. And I would always be like, yep, it's always those private accounts who love
with no username, picture, nothing.
Exactly. Who want to leave these little comments. And I just had to learn the hard way. And I remember sometimes I would get DMs from men and say, hey, I'd like to get my wife started in fitness, but I don't want her to look like you. And I was like, that's what?
So rude.
And what does that mean even? I don't want her to look like you. Then why are you reaching out to me? I don't understand what your reason. So do you get that a lot? You know what I'm saying? Where people are just especially sometimes women can be evil also, and just leave this, you're like, you must take something to even get there. I'm like, gosh, it's little do you know that it's a lot of work. And I said, it's I don't get it. Why even someone has, I don't know. I don't go on people's Instagram and just leave like
Troll them.
negative or rude comments. Like I don't have the time to, but you know what I'm saying? Partially it's like, do you even know, like, you don't know this person for one, and two, it's like, they've worked very hard to get here. You know what I'm saying? So how do you handle when you do get those reactions from people?
I get them so many a day. I get them on, TikTok. I get them lots on TikTok. I get them on YouTube. I get them on Instagram. But luckily, I've cultivated such an amazing audience that is all rooting for me. And it's like we're a family, and I connect with them like for real. I answer all my comments. I make sure that they know that I'm there for them just as much as they're there for me. And at first it was really hard when I was getting those comments, but now I just like to think about where that person must be at to go out of their way on their day to try and ruin my day or something that I'm proud of. And that thought alone puts a little bit more peace in my mind, and knowing that it's also crazy because there will be so many people that support you, and that one comment that's mean is the one that you think about when you lay up bed at night. And that's like nuts. Whenever that happens to me, there'll be some rare times where someone really says something that actually stings. And then I start to think back to gratitude. I'm like, I'm so grateful for all these people that actually care about me, know how hard I've worked, and they're not here to troll or make fun of me. And those are the people that I need to be putting my energy and time in, not putting energy back towards some troll online.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's what they want. They want a response from you.
Yeah, exactly.
So once you respond, you're giving them what they want.
For sure. When Julia Rene qualifies for Olympia, what's next after that? What's next for the folks to expect from you? Once you qualify, what happens after that?
So I'm going to do 3 to 4 shows to try and qualify. To qualify is the better wording. And once I qualify, the Olympia is in December. So I'll have a time where I'll get to take a kind of like a diet break where I still have to stay relatively lean during that point, but I will have my food increased, cardio will decrease so that I can spend that time working on the adjustments that I get and the feedback I get from my pro shows going into the Olympia. So then I'll already be relatively lean. We'll have enough food in my system so that we can start putting more muscle on and I won't be depleted. And then going into December when the 2022 Olympia is, then start chipping away again so that we can show up on stage with all of the adjustments that they ask of me.
Question, because I don't know this and I'm sure other listeners don't know. So with this next show that you're going to do to qualify, worst case, how many shows does someone have to do in order to qualify? Is it just that one, or do you have to qualify several before you can make it to the one in December?
That's a really good question. So there's 2 ways that you can qualify for the Olympia. The first is you have to win a pro show and be the overall winner.
So you did that already, correct?
No, I have to do that. That's what I'm going towards.
Got it. Okay.
I have to do that within these next shows, and you can try as many times as you want as a pro. You can also try as many times to go pro as an amateur, but it's just about your body and your health and your mental health during that time. So we've put like a 3 to 4 limit show to try in a very short amount of time. So maybe in the next May will be my first show. We'll probably do another one like 2 weeks later, another one a week later, so that I'm already lean. So I might as well just go after as many as I can. So I either have to win first in one of these upcoming shows, or I have to have enough points to qualify. So you get points by being second place, being third place, being fourth. Like you get points racked up from doing shows. And to me, that's just kind of like a gamble. Obviously, I want to go for the overall win because it's a gamble. You won't know if you qualify until all the points are racked up. But if you win an overall show, I can win that one. I get my qualification for Olympia, and then I can take a break and focus on building for the Olympia, if that makes sense.
And you're doing figure.
Wellness.
What is the difference now? Because that's a new category.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't whenever I competed, even 3 years ago, that wasn't around.
Yeah.
So now you can be.
2021 Olympia was the first year that they ever had wellness in the United States. It's usually something that's just in like Brazil, but that's where it came from. Basically, it's the only category where they do not look for symmetry. So bikini, they want an X shape where it's very balanced from top to bottom. Figure, same thing, more muscular, they want balance. Wellness, they want a smaller, more muscular upper body than bikini, less muscular than figure, but they want your lower body to dominate the upper body.
Well, that's great because that was my problem all the time. I could never get my upper body to match, and I competed figure. So I could never get lean enough for bikini, if that makes sense. Like my legs didn't, you know how you were talking about how there's just some things that it just never worked. I mean, my coach would make me stop 2 weeks out, no more legs, like nothing, because I was trying to, and I was like jogging to try to like get my legs smaller. Like I just couldn't do it. And it was crazy because as we talked about earlier about the, you know, the critiques and all that they give you, that you get the feedback. I remember the first time reading that I was not proportioned, right? And that my lower was, you know, basically I was heavier at the bottom and smaller at the bottom. And they kind of explained, you know, where it needed to be worked. And I just thought, well, damn, I'm like, I don't know how to get rid of the bottom. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you make that smaller? I didn't understand. And then I know another girl who competes, and she was the one that just said, have you thought about wellness this time around? I had no idea what it was until I heard you in your intro. And I was like, what is this wellness thing? Like, I just hadn't heard of that. So she said it's for girls with bigger legs. That's all she said. It's Geraldine who told me that. Do you know Geraldine by any chance?
I don't think so.
No. She was the one that said, she goes, it's for us with bigger legs. Right? I'm like, oh, good. Really? Okay. Well, that's great to know. I had no idea.
The category
they started that.
Yeah. It opened up space for women that didn't fit in either of those categories, because bikini and figure, that's a really big jump. There's no in between. Yeah. So having that in between is great, because at a certain point, the bikini girls, if they go at it long enough, their legs and their glutes might get too big for the category. Mm-hmm. And once that's the case, then you jump into wellness. So everyone has a different body type, and there's people that have a lower body dominant body type, and there's people that have an upper body dominant body type. If anybody listening to this, you know of that area where you're like, this grows so fast and I don't know why. Listen to these cues and you can really figure out where you need to be in the competing categories.
Mm-hmm, for sure. What are some tips that you can leave the ladies who are listening? Not necessarily because I can't say that I have a large competitor audience, but I definitely have women who follow me because before all this, I was Marisol Lifts. That was my name. So my name's Marisol. So my husband was like, it should be Marisol Lifts. I'm like, yeah,
that's amazing. Like that's one of the best I've heard.
So that was my IG name forever. And then, you know, I like finally like, okay. So I'm kind of a mom now. So it's funny. I still use that hashtag anytime that I post anything fitness related or
Marisol mom.
Yeah. Right. Marisol mom. That should be my new one. So one of the things like I always get asked are like, basically like, how do I get started? I'm sure you get asked that a lot. What are some things that I can take? And I love that your last video, you talked about crash diets and how they don't work. So if you're not watching her on YouTube, you should really go watch that video, because I was like, oh my God, those are always DMs that I get. Do you know a detox that I can take? Do you know any pills that I can take? I'm always like, but do you not understand that that doesn't really work? So those are some things that I get always DM'd about. So what tips can you leave our ladies with, our audience with, before we let you go?
I would say, as far as, say your goal is to, you know, lose a little bit of weight, you have this goal, this physique that you want. Number one is, don't crash diet. And let me tell you why. would you rather have your diet or your physique last a month, or do you want it to last a lifetime? And I know you're going to say a lifetime. If you don't, you crazy. But just like I tell people, bodybuilding isn't sustainable because it's not. Doing something really short and quick is not sustainable, nor is it healthy. And if you want your health to last a lifetime, you need to figure out how you can make this sustainable forever, not just a short amount of time, or you're going to be yo-yoing the rest of your life. And I know that's not what you want. We live in a society where we can order something on Amazon and it comes the next day. Do not Amazon order your dream physique, because it's not going to happen. You can't just expect your dream physique. Oh, let me add that to cart and it comes the next day. No.
That pill looks good.
Yeah, it seems like a great idea, but we live in a society where we want something, we get something. And maybe it could happen. Maybe you do some shred or something, but learning how to sustain it after is the really, truly hard part. That's why competitors struggle after a show to maintain the physique in a healthy way, because it is so black and white. And then number 2, don't be so focused on the scale. The scale doesn't tell you your worth. And if you do need to check the scale because you have a coach or you're competing or whatever it might be, before you step on the scale, I want you to just say this little affirmation for you. The scale doesn't determine my worth. Whatever the number says is what the number says. And just releasing that energy behind it before you step on. I do that all the time. I did it this morning, and it just, the expectation of what I'm expecting myself to be or weigh kind of just washes over me. And I, just take it for what it is. And that's how much I weigh today. And that's good, because I'm doing the best that I can. And I know I'm doing the best that I can.
I think those are great tips for everybody to take with. Tell everyone where they can find you, Julia Rene.
Yes, you can find me almost everywhere: TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Julia Rene. And it's 1 E. So it's just RENE.
And then also, do you have a website where if they're interested in your coaching program, they can go to?
It's the buffbabeacademy.com.
So guys, if you're looking for someone to guide you and, kind of take you through this journey that you're wanting to get on, go check her out. Follow her on YouTube. She's got great tips on there. I know I enjoy watching you. So thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate your time. And I will be following your journey, and I can't wait. I'm trying to go to Olympia this year. I want to go watch. I've never been to one. So I will see you there, because I know you're going to make it.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me, and for all the listeners being here. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.